Hello, 6th graders. Welcome to Big Ideas Math, 7th grade math, section 10.7, Comparing Populations lesson. Pause while you write the lesson title and number in your math notebook. Pause again while you write today's lesson objective in your math notebook. Today's objective is students will compare two populations using measures of center, measures of variation, and overlap. So let's take a look at example 1. We are comparing populations, and our study tip off to the side says that we can more easily see the visual overlap of dot plots that are aligned vertically. So if you put one on top of each other, it's easier to see the difference. It's a better visual for you. So we have candidate A and candidate B. And it says compare the populations using measures of center and variation. And if we think back to 6th grade, it reminds us that when we have distributions that are approximately symmetric, we want to use the mean and the mad to compare or to represent the measures of center and variation. So candidate A's mean is 84 and candidate A's mad is 16. Candidate B's mean is 58 and their mad is also 16. So the variation in the times was about the same. It was 16. But candidate A had the greater mean time. So they got more talking time. Express the difference in the measures of center as a multiple of the measure of variation. So this word multiple makes us think we're going to multiply, but we're not. We have to divide because our answer is a multiple. So we take the difference, mean for candidate A, minus the mean for candidate B, which is 26, so that's the difference, and we divide it by the MAD, which is 16, and we get 1.6. So 1.6 is a multiple of the measure of variation that gets us to that difference. So it says the variation in the times was about the same, so the difference in the means is about 1.6 times the MAD. So let's move on to example 2. It says using random samples to compare populations. So if you remember from earlier in the chapter, sometimes we don't have all of the data, but we have random samples. So sometimes it's just not possible for us to measure all of something. So it says you want to compare the costs of speeding tickets in 2 states. So letter A says the double box and whisker plot shows a random sample of 10 speeding tickets issued in 2 states. Compare the samples using measures of center and measures of variation. Can you use this to make a valid comparison about the speeding tickets in the 2 states? And it asks us to explain. So it says both distributions are skewed right. So remember, skewed right means that most of the data is on the left side. So you can see that most of our data in both of these box plots is on the left-hand side. Okay, and so that means that it's skewed right. So we're going to use the median and the IQR. The median and the IQR for state A, 70 and 20, are less than the median and the IQR for state B, 80 and 30. However, the sample size is too small. They only checked 10 speeding tickets, and the variability is too great to conclude that speeding tickets generally cost more in state B. So you might want to get a larger sample size. You might want to test maybe 100 or 1,000 speeding tickets in order to get a better idea of what speeding tickets cost. The double box and whisker plots show the medians of 100 samples of 10 speeding tickets for each state. Compare the variability and the sample medians to the variability of the samples in Part A. So the IQR of the sample medians for each state is about 10. So if you look at what we had in the earlier sample, the IQR was 70 in A and 80 in B, so it was very different. So here it's very similar. So the sample medians vary much less than the sample costs. So make a conclusion about the costs of speeding tickets in the two states. And it says the sample medians show much less variability. Most of the sample medians for state B are greater than the sample medians for state A. So speeding tickets generally cost more in state B than in state A. Remember to be prepared for class, and to complete your flipped lesson you need to have your notes, your vocabulary, and other work from your flipped lesson completed, and be prepared with any questions, and as always, have a great attitude.